Arrest the one black dude on the train because this white woman said she didn't like the way I was sitting on the train. So you call the police. You call the police to arrest the one black dude on the train. I haven't done anything illegal.
Let's go.
I haven't done anything illegal. I haven't done anything illegal. I am sitting on a train and one white woman didn't like my presence. Resisting what? Resisting what? What are you trying to arrest me for? I was sitting on a train. I was sitting on a train and you're trying to arrest me for what? Can I not even know what you're trying to arrest me for? Because a white woman, this white woman, resisting what? Am I being arrested?
This video is despicable yet unsurprising considering our current climate. This man's name is Alex O'Keefe. He's a speechwriter for...
There is another layer that you may not know about Epstein. A recent New York Times report revealed that Wall Street bank JP Morgan Chase had an extended business relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. The bank reportedly opened 134 accounts and processed over $1 billion in transactions for Epstein. And they did it despite warnings by bank employees that doing so could enable Epstein's crimes. And JP Morgan wasn't the only big bank connected to Epstein. Deutsche Bank executives also ignored warnings from their employees and continued to do business with Epstein. Why? Well, they estimated that they could generate up to $4 million a year in revenue from the guy. The American people deserve to know how big banks may have enabled Jeffrey Epstein's crimes. And that's why Democrats on the Senate Banking Committee are calling on Republicans to hold a hearing as soon as possible to hear from the executives of these big banks that worked with Epstein, including JP Morgan CEO Jamie Dimon. Their testimony could help Congress ensure that something like this never happens again. So, Senate Republicans, what are you afraid of? Call the hearing.
Massachusetts Senator Elizabeth Warren.
Brendan Carr, you are now just saying, parroting whatever Donald Trump and the White House wants you to say. You should be ashamed of yourself. You should go back to the original Brendan Carr, who believed in the First Amendment, who believed in free speech. It is a sad commentary upon you, Brendan Carr, attorney, FCC commissioner, free speech advocate, to have sunk so low that because Donald Trump gave you this job, he has given you an offer you can't refuse, which is if you don't bend the knee, you will lose your job as the FCC chairman. What a sad price you're paying. What a sad price that you, who have committed your life to the First Amendment, to free speech, is paying just so you can have a title at a federal agency. Please stand up the same way that Susan Monarez stood up at the Center for Disease Control to say, I will not allow for the compromise of science. You, sir, should say the same thing about the compromise of the First Amendment.
And fellow Massachusetts Senator Ed Markey. O'Keefe is also a writer for The Bear and has spoken out during the writer's strike.
All that glitters is not gold. I think we all have dreams of what Hollywood looks like. Maybe it's, based on what it used to be like in the 50s or something. But in actuality, these studios, these historic studios like Warner Brothers that have been around for 100 years are now owned by giant corporations that like 6 corporations own 90% of the media industry. And they're tech companies. They're disruptors, they call themselves. And what they really disrupt is worker rights. I mean, Amazon spends $1 billion on a Lord of the Rings TV series. They can't pay their drivers. They can't give their drivers some time to go piss between their deliveries. And these same corporations own everything. And so they're putting the same mentality towards every single job in this economy. And writing is just the latest one to get the hit of being turned from a career that you could build a middle-class life and build a family and put your kids through college to a gig where, especially if you're young, if you're like me, if you're a Black writer, if you're indigenous, a writer from the working class or from poverty, these writers who are coming into Hollywood, a new wave, and bringing a new wave of creativity, making shows like The Bear or Abbott Elementary, Severance, shows that you just haven't seen something quite like that before. Really innovative stuff. We're not being invested in whatsoever because they know that, hey, they can make us feel lucky to have the gig, right? The studios don't understand how art works. They think of it as just a base product at the end. They try to make everything more efficient. And what they don't realize is that movies are extremely complicated to make. Television shows are extremely complicated to make. And, you can get these sandwiches. For example, The Bear was given very little time to shoot their episodes, but it also just puts so much strain on the workers. And while we know the celebrities in Hollywood, we don't realize that there are hundreds of workers behind the camera who make the thing operate. And what these corporations are realizing is that Hollywood is a union town.
Here's the latest reporting on the train incident. Via the Daily Beast, O'Keefe said he was cuffed and arrested while on a Metro North train to Connecticut after a so-called Karen pointed at him and told him to correct his sitting posture. O'Keefe said he refused that order, prompting the woman to complain to the conductor. And according to this report, the conductor would call the authorities. O'Keefe wrote on his social media, specifically Instagram, "I was arrested on the MTA train to Connecticut today, pulled off, handcuffed, and detained. An old white woman got on the train and immediately pointed at me and told me to correct how I was sitting. I refused. So she went to the conductor and complained. The conductor called the police and stopped the train. While waiting for the police to arrive, the old Karen's friend said, 'You're not the minority anymore.' The police told me to leave. I refused and asked, what was I doing illegally? They said I was disturbing the peace, which is a ridiculous order, by not leaving the train. They pulled me off the train and arrested me without even talking to the Karen who reported the one black person on the train. On the platform, the police detained me and interrogated me. Only black folks stayed nearby and recorded the arrest. When I demanded a lawyer and reminded them they did not even take a statement from the woman who complained, they eventually released me. This country is growing more psycho by the day. What will you do about it?" The outlet would print. The Metropolitan Transportation Authority's Police Department, or MTAPD, told the Daily Beast no arrest had been made. Police would say that the officers responded to a report of a disorderly passenger at Fordham Metro North Station in the Bronx. In addition, the train was en route to the Grand Central Terminal to New Haven when a conductor reported a passenger occupying 2 seats had refused to remove his feet from one of the seats. If you can and are willing, please become a paid member here at TYT Sports, and or go to tyt.com/join. In addition, you can follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. Appreciate it. Have a great day.